My mom tunes in.
Welcome to the Beit Midrash tonight. My name's Mark Kirchhoff.
Nothing like seeing the mother of the rabbi.
She wants to make sure.
And the
he's doing a
rabbis
good
are
job.
wound up and ready to go.
All
So
right.
tonight we're talking about holidays and differences perhaps on how they're celebrated.
We'll tell you what we do.
I haven't decided. Pretty much, we're going to follow Rabbi Azriel's lead. It's not
Okay, go for it.
Well, we know that this was, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, this was.
Maybe connected to the other session that the other rabbis did.
Yeah, so they did, is this the second of 3 sessions?
No, I think it's
Or to one of 2?
the 2 of 2.
We're 2 of 2, excuse me, we're 2 of 2.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So we know that you, well, you may not have, but that there was a session previously, I believe in mid-October, I think.
It's about right.
Yeah. And if I wasn't right, I appreciate you just telling me that I was. It was taught by Rabbi Stoller and Rabbi Yoni on kind of on holidays and kind of throughout the denomination. So Rabbi Azriel and I put together some ideas and some things to talk about, kind of some bullet points that we thought were kind of that we could kind of elucidate and flesh out for both the conservative and the reform movement. But I also feel like after the conversation that we probably had in October and maybe now have gone through the holiday season, maybe there are also conversations or questions other folks could have of us, whether it be, and I would say even go to a broader spectrum, not just, it could be denominational differences when it comes to holidays, it could be liturgical differences, clothing choices, whatever you'd like to kind of,
Clothing choice.
I don't know, I was trying to make
That's
it,
because your mother is.
I was trying to make it a broad spectrum, all right? So, yeah, so we'll go from there, is that fair?
Yeah, it's fair. What if we start with the Torah portion that you brought up, the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur Torah and the Torah portion?
Okay, so this has always been for a question for me. So I want to be very clear. I don't like the pejorative of you guys, but it makes my life easier to pick on you. So what does the reform movement do for let's start with Rosh Hashanah. For your one day of Rosh Hashanah, you gotta have something.
Ooh. Yeah,
Rabbi Azriel, by the way, has been more than willing on multiple occasions to allow me to come speak at Temple Israel for day 2 of Rosh Hashanah. But I haven't gotten.
Something that I failed to do is to convince the congregation for 2 days.
Yeah?
Yeah. So you had a chance to find me in Beth Israel. I went for a 2nd day of Rosh Hashanah.
You tell me you went to Beth Israel. You didn't come to me.
No, I came to you, but before you came.
Okay.
I'll have to do it again.
Okay, but what does the reform movement read on Rosh Hashanah day 1?
Okay, we don't want to depress the children every year by reading about the attempt on the part of Abraham to sacrifice his son. I think it's an awful Torah portion. I understand why it's there. We have it as an option. But Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year.
Okay.
It's uplifting. Especially this coming Rosh Hashanah, it will definitely be uplifting. Do I want to introduce to them year after year the chapter of Abraham with a knife over his son, and last minute, finally, he wanted to blow the shofar, so he slaughtered a ram. So I think there is something problematic of telling children, and we have children on Rosh Hashanah more than other times of the year.
Fair.
I think it's a devastating Torah portion. The binding of Isaac, because that's the other option we have. So we have an option
Which is
of creation. What makes more sense than on Rosh Hashanah reading about creation?
So that's
Yeah, I mean, it's actually our world needs to be created regularly.
So it's an interesting conversation. So that is, I'll be very upfront. When I first looked at the Reform Machzor, the new Reform Machzor, which is beautiful, and
Thank you.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
I didn't have anything to do with it.
It's also a great marketing thing. The fact that it's a different book than the Yom Kippur version.
That's how the movement raises money.
That's incredible.
Every time we don't have money, we publish books.
Trust me.
You guys do the same.
We publish one book with both things in it.
No.
We have our Mahzor is Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
Oh my God, there's so much material. You can't put it in one book. And also it falls, it becomes
You cut out half the liturgy. What are we talking about here? It's such a big book.
the one that is irrelevant, of course.
Okay, so
Well,
to your point, you've chosen uplifting. You've chosen creation for Rosh Hashanah day for Rosh Hashanah. We do I'll say the traditional or the more customary version, which is both the binding. We do as far as Abraham and Sarah being told they're having children, which is, mildly uplifting.
Absolutely.
Right. So we do chapter. I think
An unbelievable miracle.
right. We do. I think it's I think it's Genesis 20 and 21.
Yeah.
And then day 2 is Akedat Yitzhak,
Okay.
which certainly is a problematic. Although I think it keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Keep psychiatrists working for us.
I'm not arguing
Because you take the kids immediately after the service straight to the psychiatrist.
So I don't disagree. That's very true. I'm not going to knock that, but I think there is something to be said for the differences. And I also think if you're going to have, and then this is not a knock, if you're going to have one day and you've got to pick a reading, I think that what you've chosen is the reading to do, right? Like I would say, like if I only had one day to knock something out,
You'll do the.
I would either do Genesis 1:1, right? Or I would say to myself, picking between the two, because the other thing, just to kind of broaden this out here, the reason the traditional reading is done is because, to Rabbi Azriel's point, you're talking about creation. The reason the customary reading is you're creating new worlds by having children. So it's still a creation story, right? It's creating new families, it's creating children. Like there is a creation narrative to it.
Yeah, but
You think that's
but
been?
do I need to bring them to sacrifice?
But only they've been bad. I don't think so. I think I agree with you. I think it's problematic. I'm not disagreeing with you.
We have as an option the traditional Torah portion.
Okay.
As an option. So you have a selection for those places that have second day. There are some congregations,
Yes.
liberal reform congregations, that have second day of Rosh Hashanah.
And what do they do typically second day?
No, so that's what they will do. One
Oh,
day,
they'll do creation one day and they'll do Akedat Yitzhak the other day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So then, all right.
But they will also be able to talk about Ishmael. You see, I think, when you are in a
Why did I
faith-
have I had a feeling come over me that was where you were going to go.
Yeah, when you have a tri-faith place,
Yes.
it's not a bad idea
To
to
throw it.
acknowledge that Abraham has 2 children.
He does.
Also to
But
acknowledge.
he has more than that, actually.
Yeah, of course.
You could
But
have
how can you remember
You
all
have
the
a seventh
names?
faith. I'm just, I just say, yes.
No, but also, according to tradition, after Sarah dies,
Yes.
he goes back to
Well, he goes to Hadar, he goes to Keturah, he has a good time.
Keturah, which is known as Hagar.
Well, okay.
No, I just want to make sure that.
Yes, from the rabbis. Yes, I'm there. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay.
And we now, listen, I'm without question with Ishmael. And if you read Ishmael without the rabbinic text, Ishmael's a stand-up kid.
Beautiful, absolutely.
No question. The
Absolutely.
rabbis make him into
Villain,
yes,
into ugly character,
without question.
which
So-
is still haunting us.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then I have one other question.
Please.
So that's for Rosh Hashanah. But I think another thing we didn't put on here though, that I think is just a difference, I don't know if there's a good or a bad, is in the conservative, the Orthodox world, if Rosh Hashanah day 1 falls on Shabbat, we don't blow shofar.
Yeah.
You blow shofar.
We do show.
Right. Because
Because that's what people come for.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which, by the way, just so we're on the same page, and if folks have questions, please throw them out or put them in the chat and Rabbi Mark will pull them up. But I'm all for it. I actually, to your point, while I'm actually probably more of a question on the creation Torah reading part,
Are you more liberal than me?
maybe.
Wow.
I don't think that's possible. I think I could be within striking distance of you,
Okay.
but I don't think I'm more liberal than you.
Okay.
And I'd wear that as a badge of honor if I got that far.
Absolutely. I'm giving it to you.
Why? Don't do it yet. Let me get to the merits.
No, we do
Let me
it in
get to
front
the
of everyone.
merits. I'm not sure I want to be knighted that yet. But I guess that's an important point is if you went to a Reform synagogue on Rosh Hashanah and for Rosh Hashanah, day one clearly, and it was falling out on Shabbat, you should know. And the reason that conservative and Orthodox Jews typically don't is the idea of carrying. Like you would have brought the shofar to the synagogue. It's playing a musical instrument. There's any number of reasons why you wouldn't do it. And so that part of the service just gets cut out. But I think Rabbi Azriel's
you don't
point-
mention. Yeah, you
Right,
don't
but-
mention the shofar blow.
Of course,
no
no.
blessings.
But you still do, oddly enough, you still do shofarot in the Musaf repetition.
Yeah,
You just don't blow the shofar. But the irony is, I think, to Rabbi Azriel's point, and to the Reform movement as a whole, it's almost like, guys, what is Rosh Hashanah without the shofar blowing? Like that's what people come
that's
to
why
shul
the
here.
kids are there.
I'm all for it.
Also, we instituted something that asks people to bring their shofarot, so you get more than one shofar on
Oh.
Shabbat.
So we do that for Ne'ilah.
Yeah.
We have kids and everybody.
Kriya Gdola.
Yeah,
And
we
then
have everybody
everyone
bring.
does it.
We have
Yeah.
everybody bring. So, okay, so then the other one would just be to,
What about the Musaf? We talked about what you're
For-
reading from the Torah
for Yom
at the
Kippur.
end of Yom Kippur.
So this is for Mincha.
For Mincha, yeah.
So so the conservative movement has in the Mahzor both a traditional and what I'll call it, I think, an
Optional.
alternative.
Alternative.
And the traditional is the major text from Kedoshim, right, talking about a man shall not lie with a man.
Leviticus 18.
Yeah. And so that text is the traditional text.
And by the way, do you read that verse or you skip that verse?
Wait,
About a man should not sleep with a man.
Wait. So the first year I was here at Beth El as the rabbi,
How many years? Mike?
I got here in 11, so it's been 11 years. I know, yeah, I know. You and I are
Ad
both
mea
getting,
v'esrim.
you and I are both getting old. So my first year here, I had to teach a study session before I read the traditional text, because I didn't want anyone to think that I'm reading this text and I'm not understanding what the text is saying of all the days of the year.
Why would they doubt a conservative rabbi?
No. But I don't. That was said with a level of.
No, I'm serious.
No. But what I'm saying is I have a problem with the text. So I basically read a study session.
So you taught it before.
I taught about
Yeah.
why we read problematic texts. My problem with that was I couldn't do that study session every single year,
Of course not.
and I didn't want someone to walk in and think
That you were
that-
doing it because
that I don't.
you have an opinion.
And the opinion is that we're reading this because I don't care. So therefore, we went to the optional text. I will be very upfront and tell you, I don't like it.
The option. What is it?
It also is taken from Kedoshim. It's people you still aren't supposed to sleep with. It sounded like it was taken from some better place. It was just, it was this one line.
Don't you like to omit those things from the annual reading of Torah?
So that was actually going to be a question. When you made the comment that you don't do the Akedat Yitzhak, it's
No.
psychiatry bills for our kids. Like, would you ever not do it during the regular cycle of?
No, I do the Akedah and I'm
You're just conscious of it.
I do an introduction and I explain why we do it. I'm talking about the faith, the depth of the faith of Abraham. We need to talk about this too. I mean, the reason why it was selected, because that's the ultimate kind
Well,
of
it's a test.
What?
Yeah, it's a
Test.
test.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the final test.
That's it. The only question though becomes, and I think from our people, from Shalom Spiegel to Kierkegaard to all these questions is, the question about Abraham was, at the end of the day, we have no idea if he passed the test or not. Right? We make an assumption that Abraham did right. And there's also the ability of God saying, well, maybe he screwed this whole thing up. Right? Who knows? We have no idea. So I've thrown that out before too.
But I also sometimes I gave a sermon once or twice that actually I think he failed the final test. God does not invite people blindly to go and sacrifice their children.
Well, but
God wanted to hear, no, I'm not doing it. He didn't hear it.
So I think you're right. I think that was exactly what was supposed to happen. I think there was but as a religion that has now evolved, I think we look absolutely
Every day.
We look at the world and we see there were other religious traditions that were existing at that time that did sacrifice children. So maybe the lesson to us is that we didn't do this.
Yeah.
regardless of whether Abraham or not.
Okay,
So we'll see what happens.
we have a little intermission now.
What's up, my friend? Okay, we'll do something later. Your just to be clear, your JFO donation dollars did not pay for enough hot chocolate in the hot chocolate
Oh,
machine
it's finished?
at the Jewish Federation
Oh
of
my
Omaha.
God.
So
Okay, we have to bring
Just,
this to a closure now.
just if you make your Federation campaign donation, you should please make sure you tell someone that they ran out of hot chocolate.
Maybe you can have someone name the hot chocolate.
There's
machine.
You want to talk about Yom Kippur?
We did, so
No, we didn't talk about Yom Kippur yet.
we just did it. We did yeah, because we did Leviticus.
Oh, Leviticus, okay.
Right,
So,
so
which I think it's a brilliant selection of how to end up the service.
but what do you do?
We do the same Leviticus.
Wait, you do
I do
Leviticus
Leviticus
18?
18, yeah, because you need to send your people to the world with the Kedusha, with what makes someone be holy. The stages, the steps to become holy.
But do you read
Yeah,
the
of
text that
course.
says a mention of the?
No, I don't read that verse.
Oh,
Why would I read? I never read this verse. Why would I start now?
I don't know. That's part of Leviticus 18. I was just curious. I don't know. You said you read the
We
chapter.
are definitely trained in the reform movement
That verse
to
doesn't
skip
exist.
verses that are abomination.
Huh. I have so many things to say. but
Oh my God.
I'm gonna keep my. I don't want to go too far.
Can we
No,
have
no.
another night?
I'm gonna
We
okay.
need more.
So wait. So I will also just to add to going back on Rosh Hashanah. I think one of the reasons, and you can.
Say.
No. I'm trying to just formulate the thought. I think that one of the reasons that the conservative movement has always kept the traditional text for Rosh Hashanah day one of not doing the creation story is in no small part because of the fact that the day of Simchat Torah, not Erev, but that we do 2 day Yontif and we don't consolidate, we don't put anything together.
Yeah.
That the day of Simchas Torah, we
You
read,
do, Genesis.
we start over. We do the end of
Yeah.
Deuteronomy, B'Zod Bracha, and we come right into
That's
it.
exactly what we do. We do the death of Moses the night before.
Oh, because you read an EV.
Yeah.
Ah, okay, so fine. So, but what I'm saying is, I think that that's one of the reasons that we think that for me, I justify myself in some way saying, we're doing the beginning at another date. We're not
Makes
doing
sense,
it,
makes
right? Not
sense,
doing
makes
it.
sense, makes
Right.
sense.
Right. So, okay. Do you want to talk about 1 day Yontif?
No, I.
Not as far as Rosh Hashanah, but even for any, so it's important to realize that the reform movement follows much more of a holiday cycle that's
The
similar
Israeli
to
style.
Israel,
Yeah.
other than Rosh
Israeli
Hashanah.
Yeah.
Other than Rosh Hashanah. So that is a 1 day Yontif. So Pesach on the front end is 1 day Seder, the end at 7th and 8th days are 1 day consolidated. The Shmini
It's hard to
Atzeret.
be constipated for so long.
Oh, God. Maybe I'll hire you to be my assistant rabbi.
Anytime,
So.
because I'm not gonna be hired by.
No,
the
you're not going back. So it's done there. So that bridge is done. So, yeah, no, I mean, but that's a real question. So for just what it's worth, we do 2 days. Doesn't mean people show up for it, but we do 2 days of Yontif. And that it changes a lot of things. I mean,
Of course.
it's, so, and there is a question, people ask me all the time, like, well, Steven, you've got the iPhone, we've figured out mathematical calculations. We know when the holiday starts and ends. We know when the moon rises and falls. We know
there's something to talk about tradition. Yeah.
I wouldn't know what I would do.
Yeah.
Somebody made it. I mean, there was a conservative synagogue growing up in the DC area. There was a conservative synagogue that only did 1 day Yontif. And it was really interesting because their Torah readings were screwed up. Their Torah readings were not what every other.
Not the same side.
Right, because they were on the Israeli cycle. They
Yeah.
didn't have double parshiot because they had extra time.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do. I think I would almost I don't think I could go to work. Or I've wondered about it. I mean, I don't mean to knock any place, but you can take, I think, PTO here. I don't know what the right words are, but there are days here at the Federation where you can.
But that's why I went sometimes
Somewhere
not
else.
every year to some other
Yeah.
place, just to be able to be in a synagogue and see what other people do.
And not have to play rabbi.
Oh, you still had to be dressed.
You still have to be dressed.
Yeah,
You don't have to go
yeah.
up there calling pages.
No, but you still have to say good Yom Tov.
Yeah, well, so that's true. That probably is a nice thing to do.
Tisha B'Av. So, you ready with this?
I'm not ready, but you can talk about
Okay,
it.
so why do we really go on commemorating Tisha B'Av?
Well, why don't you explain, just in case there's anybody out there, what is Tisha B'Av?
Tisha B'Av, once a year, we put all the tragedies that took place in Jewish history into one day.
It's our
And
Friday
we-
the 13th.
This year.
Well, no, it is. It's essentially like, it's like the Friday it's like,
Friday the 13th.
right, it's like our day, that any catastrophe that could have ever befallen the Jewish people.
Which I find a little bit problematic, because thank God that the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed. You'll never say thank God for that.
I wouldn't have a job.
You'll
Can you
not have a
imagine?
job if you say thank God the temple was destroyed.
No, if the temple actually existed, I would not have a job.
I know, we'll do shish kebab every.
I'm saying.
I know. So there is no reason, I feel, to lament the destruction of the temple, because a few hundred years even before the destruction of the temple, the role of the Levite and the priest was already corrupted by the Romans. I mean, the Romans were there nominating their own people to do the sacrifice. It wasn't a destruction that took place in 1 hour and then we didn't have temple. There was a, what?
No, we have a question.
No, we got a que- I just
We'll get
saw-
there. You're good.
Okay.
You're
So
good.
you know,
I'm-
Well,
I'm saying that thank God
okay.
that Judaism had a moment in history where the good gatekeepers kept the door open and allowed for this religion to get some new oxygen into their lungs and be able to bring us something different. By the way, I think similar to the destruction of the temple is also commemorating the Holocaust. And it is possible, I cannot understand exactly how people felt the day after, but I know everyone went on the diaspora. There was the uprooting of the Jews from the holy country, the holy place of living in Jerusalem, and sending them all over the world. So there was a chaos. But I think that maybe it's time to do a blessing, some kind of a blessing, to welcome the new change that took place in the year 70 CE.
So, okay, before I go to go for the Tisha B'Av, just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
What is done? I mean, I recognize you can't just say what is done in the Reform movement, but maybe it's Temple Israel's going to. Do you guys?
We combine the services. We all go to the same
No,
place. Omaha.
not Yom HaShoah. Go back to Tisha B'Av for a second.
Yeah,
Do you guys do Eicha?
of course.
Okay.
Lamentation.
Yeah.
We
So-
do it in camp. It's always in camp.
Oh, right. Well, which, by the way, is why it's a Jewish holiday. Let's be clear. Tisha B'Av would not be as big of a Jewish holiday.
If it wasn't
If
for
it did-
camp.
Yeah, because camp has no other Jewish holiday. Right? I mean, serious. I'm not trying to be funny.
Wait.
Camp doesn't have anything. So what do
Separating
you?
from the parents. It's a big
No,
holiday.
but you sit down and you teach the kids how to do the trope of Eicha,
Yeah.
and you take
Yeah.
it's a fast day.
And it's very dramatic.
I'm saying.
Camp is very dramatic.
So it makes its way. So I really think it was made into a big Jewish cultural experience
As a
because of
result,
camp.
yeah.
If I mean, listen, I can speak for the conservative movement when we've had the ability when Shavuot has fallen out later into the summer, earlier in the summer, but in the mamish summer, not May.
Yeah, when you have.
Jewish summer camps have made sure that they start before other staff will start because it's like, oh my God, we get to do a Jewish holiday together.
Beautiful.
So I would say that for the conservative movement, one of the most things that's very interesting is that there's a number of papers. One of them is by David Lincoln at the Schechter Institute in Jerusalem, where people people do what they do, but it's a 25-hour fast is the most customary tradition. Some people will fast till mincha. So we do at Beth El is we'll have morning services, no tefillin, fine. Come back for mincha around like 1, and we don't break fast at that point. But it's very traditional that people will break fast there because it's an idea of saying, wait a second, right? Like let's be conscious of the fact that we observe this holiday because of the destruction of the city, of the destruction of this temple. And yet, we now have it. So how do we
We have one.
we have Jerusalem. We don't have a temple, but we have Jerusalem.
Yeah. Oh, thank God. Yeah.
Right. So therefore, let's split the baby, right?
Let's not lament completely.
Right, let's not do the entire day of this. What is a modern day way to understand this?
Beautiful.
I don't think it's good, but it is what it is.
Okay.
Does Mr. Reiches, do you have a question?
Of course.
Where are you?
He's in the top left.
Top left.
With a hand up, yeah.
Were there
This is
other-
Margot.
Was there other ones on the chat?
That's Margot maybe.
Well, no, it's
It's
not,
not.
I promise.
All right. I was going to ask particularly Rabbi Azriel when we dealt with the Akedah. Here is a situation, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, in which we examine the meaning of existence, the very deepest thoughts that we have. And are you saying, well, that's the time to give them sugar-coated pablum? Why not deal with it? Why not deal? The Akedah is a profound passage. Why not deal with it?
I totally agree with you. And I have been, I'll have to send you the collection of Akedah sermons that I have given. I think there is a lot of interesting material that you can definitely preach about. But I'm saying now we have a new prayer book. The Reformed New Prayer Book has an option of the beginning of the world. And I think it's a wonderful time also to talk about new beginnings, especially after 2 years of COVID. I think this Rosh Hashanah needs to be celebrated about life.
Yeah, but I think, Steve, it is an interesting, your question is a good one. I don't think it's, you can talk about Akedah Yitzhak both at Rosh Hashanah, of course, and then when you get there in the regular cycle of readings. But there is a lot of sense in some ways. A couple of years back, Beth El decided to have to throw a birthday party for Rosh Hashanah.
Beautiful.
That's what we did. Because essentially it's Yom Harat Olam, right? It's you're celebrating
the birth of
the world. So for our sake, we think of the way that our Torah reading makes it out. We think about the birth of the world by this new family that's beginning, this first, dare I say, Jewish, Hebrew, whatever you want to call them. For your purposes, you're looking at Yom Harat Olam and you're saying, let's mamish do Yom Harat Olam. Let's read the story of how the world was created.
Because psychologically it's so important.
I think to Steve's point, my dilemma, and I agree with Steve in some regard, which is to a great deal, is that I wonder about the day that you probably have the most amount of Jews, of Yiddim, sitting in the pews.
Every Friday.
You have the same amount of Rosh Hashanah?
Almost.
You built that balcony?
I have not been before. We have a balcony.
I know you built the balcony. That's what I'm saying. You got all the Jews. So I'm saying, I think that's the hard part. Is when I think about what to speak about or what I want for the Torah reading on Rosh Hashanah, not that I'm making that decision, but at least what I'm speaking about, I know that Rosh Hashanah is a day where I'm going to take my biggest shot of what am I going to try and talk about. So I look at the Torah reading the same deal. I want them to struggle with
But
something.
I thought you're not doing this. Don't tell me that you're like all the rest of the rabbis. The best sermon is on that day. Come on.
You can't pull that off. I think you try hard every day of the week.
Of course.
Yeah.
Every day. Totally.
Right. The Super Bowl mentality doesn't work for me.
I think every Shabbat, the rabbis, some people really think that we spend so much time on the sermon for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that we are neglecting the rest of the week or the rest of the year. It's the same amount of thinking and work. We make ourselves crazy by thinking like our people. That's
Whom we love.
We love all of them, absolutely.
Okay, so was there anything else out there?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, Andy, did you have a question too, Andy?
Yes, I do. So the question has to do with Tisha B'Av, and I learn every time I attend these things, I learn something new. And that what I learned this evening so far was the Reform viewpoint on the temple. So therefore, my question is, when a Reform rabbi or a Reform individual visits Jerusalem and goes to the wall, is there and should there be a connection? Because if I heard Rabbi Azriel correctly, it's something that maybe if I heard you right, maybe it was good that it's no longer around. If I heard you correctly, and if I didn't hear you correctly, obviously correct me. But if that's what I heard, I'm wondering what the feeling is when the wall is visited. Should it be visited, and what kind of a attachment, if any, should there be to it?
Well, I think my feelings about the wall are similar to Yeshayahu Leibovitch feelings about the wall. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to the monopoly of Orthodox Judaism on the wall in Israel, where women are not allowed to come closer to the wall to pray, and they have a special kind of place for them, for Reform minions around the wall, but far away from where everyone is. The way liberal Jews are accepted or welcome in the wall is abomination.
But
But that's not my question. I agree with you, but that's not my question. I'm in full agreement with you there, but that's not my question.
Yeah,
If you're okay, Andy, I'm working on it.
Every group that I took to Israel, I ended up in the wall, because that's what that's what Jews do at 4:00 in the afternoon.
but I guess my
Friday.
question is though is, I guess not my question, although I'm now curious. I think to Andy's question is, Andy, I'm going to ask it a little bit differently. So if I screw this up, you just call me out on it. When we pray in the Shemona Esrei that we do, weekday, we pray for the rebuilding of Jerusalem.
We don't have it.
Okay, so we're getting closer. So I guess, so noted from the temple, I get the temple as a historical place that you want to go to, that a Reform, and if I say Reform Jew, I mean like the prototypical Rick Jacobs Reform Jew here, right? Like not, okay. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, to Andy's point, to what you said about Tisha B'Av, does the temple hold, or the wall, the kotel, hold intrinsic value other than it being a historical monument?
I understood the question, but the wall for me has not the same meaning and deep feelings like for you, Andy.
I don't know how you do.
No. I think the question was to ask me about my feeling about the wall.
But so you don't do, but the rebuilding of Jerusalem.
I refuse to make out of stones walls sacred locations. I think that I don't need to go to the wall to feel Jewish. Actually, I became a Jew in America. I was Israeli in Israel. Coming to America made me a Jew. So I have a little bit more respect there to the wall. But by and large, I think, again, I'm going to Yeshayahu Leibovitch, and he actually said that the wall for him is where little birds poop on. And that's how he felt about the wall. That's Yeshayahu Leibovitch, one of the most orthodox men in Jewish tradition.
Yeah,
He was crazy.
he was nuts. He didn't want the Israel prize. He also said that if God had deemed us to daven the phone book, he would have davened the phone book. He was not, not that we don't want to quote him, I'm just saying, he went a little bit off the.
So thank you for answering the question. I'm sure you guys have more to cover. So I'll put myself back on mute.
But Andy, it is an interesting thing, right? Because the point I think that you're making or bringing out also fleshes out or kind of brings to light the fact that there are also like liturgical differences. Like I kind of briefly brought it up, but in the
new prayer book,
in our prayer book, like in the regular Sim Shalom, or
they brought it into our prayer book. In the last version of what's the name of the book?
Before the old one was.
No, Sharet Tfilah.
I know the name of your prayer book. You don't know the name of your prayer book.
I've not been a rabbi for so many years now.
So I guess my takeaway is, and I'll say this, God forbid the wall is destroyed
Wouldn't
or
be the end of the world.
in any way, shape, or form, many people would be okay with that.
Many
Yeah.
people, I mean, it will be catastrophe. If the wall is
Why?
destroyed, well, some people will be upset, especially those people who are next to the wall raising money all the time.
Yeah, but I think,
Poor
Andy,
families.
if nobody was injured and the wall disappeared, if nobody was injured and the wall disappeared tomorrow,
It's a Turkish
yes,
wall.
well,
It's what?
well. Oh, okay, I mean, it was,
Who built that wall?
The Israelis would rebuild.
I mean, not the Turks. Probably not, no. I mean, you don't think Herod built it?
No.
No.
Anyway, you guys got more things to cover, so.
But all I was saying, but all I was saying, Andy, was I think that it brings, to your point, brings up a grander question or a grander conversation, which is there are liturgical things as well that matter a great deal. So whether there are holiday differences, which I think we've covered a number of them, and I'm sure some were covered in the other session, there's also liturgical. So one of them being as far as the rebuilding or the restoration of Jerusalem, right? That was brought back.
What do you do with Hashivenu Adonai Elecha V'Nashuva? What are you asking? What are you praying when you say, bring us back to the glorious days of what? Of the sacrifice?
It is problematic. I'm not going to take that away from you. It is problematic. I give that to you. You win. Yeah, no, it's problematic. No different than it is to say we talk about at Tzemach. We talk about the back of Moshiach and everything. Yeah, like listen, I'm not going to tell you that there's clearly things about that I don't necessarily I don't know how much my faith holds for some of those things, but we liturgically keep them.
Yeah.
And I think that we keep them in no small part because of this is the way it's been. And I think it's right. I'm saying this is the way it's been.
You're right.
And so that therefore,
like a history book, you need to remember stuff that happened to us.
Right. When it got codified for a reason. Now, don't get me wrong, we've also made changes, which is, I want to make sure I don't keep myself in trouble. But
After so many years, you still need
No.
This?
It's not about that. Like you can go in the conservative Siddur. We have do you have the option of doing the imachot or just the avot, or do you just?
No,
it's
we
only
have
for
the
both?
imahot. I mean,
It's standard.
yeah, it's standard.
Okay.
And then we need to deal with the concubines. There's a conversation now in our movement, what to do with the other women. What?
Okay. So we do not as of yet.
They had children.
I hear you. There's only so many pages. There's only so much ink. There's so many pages. So we at the moment at Beth El, we don't add the imachot. I imagine that will change, right? But for the conservative Siddur, they're on the same page. There's the avot, and then there's the avot and the imachot.
On the other side.
No, I think right next to each other.
Oh,
There's
different columns.
It's a different column, but it's
Yeah,
all in
yeah,
46
you're right.
in the
I
Hebrew,
saw it.
and then right. So they're right there. It used to be like 46A and 46B, and that I agree was problematic.
Like the pages in the Talmud.
Right, it was the next. Exactly, it was the next
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So that they changed, but I think that those things matter because I think that they reflect something about where the movement's at. If you're not going to talk about the redemption of Jerusalem, and to Andy's point, it's not that it doesn't matter, but it gives off a perception of how important is this if we're not going to talk about it. And those things matter. So one of the other things that you and I brought up the other day, and I may have screwed this up though, is so we say the Shema in the evening and at nights, right? When you lie down and when you wake up, you say the Shema.
Yeah, we added already. So in our prayer book, we added the last section that was not there.
Did you add them? So the Shema, for everybody playing along here, is 3 paragraphs.
Yeah.
So it was always customary, and you know better than I, it was always customary that you say the first, if you said anything aloud. So at Beth El, we always, for morning and evening minyan traditionally, we do the first paragraph out loud, we are silent for the second paragraph, and then the third paragraph, the Vayomer paragraph, we do out loud. And the reason we did those we didn't do the second paragraph out loud is because the second paragraph talks about basically if you don't follow God, all this stuff is going to befall you. The grass isn't going to grow, the trees aren't going to do this, all of your crops are going to die. Fine. And I believe it was Shara Tefillah, and I may be getting my Sidorim wrong. The second paragraph of Shema was taken out.
Yeah,
And so I guess the interesting thing
it's back now.
Okay, so it's back. So I guess my question becomes, did the theology change? Or what took it out that would then bring people to bring it back, knowing I'm not putting you on the spot that you were the editorial committee. You think because the kids were doing it.
The kids were doing it.
They're to blame.
Not to blame, to be blessed. Yeah.
There was a level of facetiousness in this.
No.
So because they were probably doing it at camp.
Similar to how you mentioned before
For
about
Tisha B'Av.
the Tisha B'Av, yeah.
Interesting.
That Jews discover Tisha B'Av to their children. that
Because
went to camp.
But that's interesting. Because I think our movement would be too stubborn to take something out and then another Siddur version later put it back in. I give you a lot of credit.
The impact of camp in the reform movement is unbelievable. Unbelievable. The kids that grew up in camp went every summer to camp, came back and said, we want more. And they became the rabbis. They became the rabbis. How are reform rabbis?
You know how the modern Orthodox world got rabbis? From the conservative kids who went to camp.
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
That's a conversation for another day. So that's interesting though. Because I really mean it. I give the reform movement a lot of credit because we wouldn't change. Like if we took something out, it'd be gone. Like there's no way. This is something that some folks may have paid attention to. You know this probably way better than I. The prayer for the state of Israel in the Hebrew is 3, 4, 5 paragraphs long.
Yeah.
If you open up open up an Orthodox prayer book, and then open up the conservative prayer book, and it's ours are three. It's 3. Fine, I have a problem with that. But the standard prayer for the prayer from Israel says that basically all of the diaspora will pick up and move back.
Yeah.
Which
that's why Israel doesn't have a constitution.
So
they're waiting for all the Jews to move. But
we don't say it because we're sitting there in front of your Jews, and it's like no, stay in Omaha. It's okay, right? We don't want to make anybody feel bad.
Yeah.
So we just cut it out. Doesn't exist. If you open up the Koran Siddur or whatever, open up. It's not there. It's there for us. It's not there because we didn't want to. We had a theological problem with it. We didn't believe it. We didn't believe you couldn't not be a Jew in Omaha, Nebraska. You could be a Jew in Omaha, Nebraska. You could be a Jew in Jerusalem.
Of course.
So therefore,
only if you have rabbis like us.
Well, if you can't be in Omaha, you might as well be in Jerusalem.
Amen.
Any other questions there?
Yes.
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. I want to ask once again, Rabbi Azriel, the third paragraph of the Shema, in my opinion, is a fantastic description of the meaning of ritual in Jewish life. I could never understand why the Reform movement took that first half of the third paragraph out. Is it back in?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to answer for you, but it's all there now.
All of this is we are constantly going through the years discovering more text that we omitted. I cannot speak on behalf of other generations. I'm very happy with the new Siddur that we have and the format.
Did it close?
What happened?
Now we're still.
Okay.
We lost the,
It's okay. We're okay.
We can't lose.
No.
we
So,
lost the
Right.
visual, but we're there.
but you now have it back in, which I think is what's most important. Right, you got all 3 paragraphs back in.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right. I think that's what matters most. I feel like we're talking to ourselves.
I think that I don't know if all of you are aware of the Sefriya, an amazing
Hit
website.
the far right button, Mark.
What happened?
I think the top,
Where?
next under the S in Rikus. Hit that button right there. See what that does.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. We have a terrorist here next to the.
So that's
There is the Andy again.
yeah, but please.
So
Come on, Ask
So
the
the question, so the question is not directed at Rabbi Azriel. So, and you'll
Oh my
understand,
God.
and you'll understand why I say that before I ask this very highly controversial question. What I'm hearing generally from the reform movement reminds me of something called cancel culture.
Oh, interesting. That's fair.
So I'm looking for someone to tell me where I'm wrong.
So that is an interesting, no, it's interesting because
No,
it's a thing when you don't want to, when you decide not to read something because it's problematic.
I think the reform movement, in its inception, did all kind of things in order to attract Jews that didn't have any place to be. I think the reform movement is growing beautifully now, and it's introducing some of the mistakes. I'm willing to take blame for the mistakes we did 150 years ago.
That's good.
Totally. I think we made mistakes, and sometimes we threw the baby with the water. And I think it's important to admit it. Once upon a time, we were not Zionists, and now there's no doubt in my mind that we are all Zionist Jews, as American Jews, who are also liberal. Yeah.
But Annie, it is a really, really great point. I think it's if you look at Jewish history, though, forget even the difficult text. I mean, to your point, it's one of the main reasons I have a problem with not reading the traditional reading on Yom Kippur Mincha, right? Because I look at it and say, wait, this is what you're supposed to read, right? Let's read what we're supposed to read, and then we should talk about the fact of why we have a problem with it. But better that we read it, people should be educated on the fact that this is what we actually do, than, dare I say, run away from it. But there's a complication to it. I would never not read it in the normal yearly triennial cycle, right? I would never skip over it.
You don't skip any verses. You read the entire.
Well, we do the triennial, but I don't ever skip a verse.
You read all of them.
All of them.
And you do the same with Haftorahs?
Yes. Yes.
You
I read the assigned Haftorah,
Yeah.
A to Z.
Yeah. So there are kids coming to bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah celebration and are bored out of their mind because the clergy are not explaining really what the meaning of the Haftorah portion is all about. And sometimes I don't have any difficulty in selecting sometimes Haftorah portion that maybe don't exactly correspond to the right Haftorah portion of the week, just because the material is difficult. There are some terrible Haftorah portions that you don't want to read during a celebration of bat mitzvah. And they go into some descriptions that the kids are so confused. And there is never a time to really, for the rabbi or the cantor, to teach the Haftorah portion in a serious manner.
Listen, I'll never forget my Torah portion and the rabbi of blessed memory getting up there and speaking about I believe it was I can't remember if it was the rape of Dinah.
Oh, great.
Or it was Judah and Tamar. I can't remember.
Both wonderful Torah portions.
I don't remember, by the way, I don't remember anything about my bar mitzvah. I remember my mother's here. I love her to death. I don't remember. I remember the party was great. I remember I did Vayishlach. I did beautifully. It must have been wonderful.
What do you mean you don't remember anything? You remember what you read.
That's it. But I remember what the rabbi of blessed memory spoke about, because you spoke about some crazy thing. Mm-hmm. No. You spoke about Judah and Tamar or the rape of Dinah, and I was like, really? That's what you chose to talk about? Because that was really going to keep them rolling in the aisles.
So growing up,
that's what I remember.
I know. But growing up in Israel, those chapters we read as students underneath the table.
That was like X-rated material.
X-rated material. Yeah. I mean, the stuff that we were told in elementary school in Israel and then high school, because you are supposed to take Bible in high school.
But we read it, but we still, without question, for better or worse, I'm not telling you that that's what I'd ever speak about for a bar bat mitzvah or try and pull something to be me. But we read it. If the young person that was their text, that's what they would read. Stam. Doesn't mean I would talk about it.
No, but you'll spend time with that child before the bar mitzvah.
Walking through
the text.
and saying this is really tough stuff. Yeah.
And then you get the call from the parents. Oh my God, my kids have to read about
11 years in, I haven't gotten that call.
because they don't know what you do.
They don't know what we're doing.
Okay. This was the most engaging and interesting session I think we've ever had. And I thank both of you for that. And I'm going to present to you the biggest challenge of the night.
Okay.
Are you ready? This is going to be hard for you guys. One at a time.
Okay.
Just reflect on what was discussed tonight and what your takeaway is from the discussion.
Where's the hand?
Davey, it's too late.
Are you asking the people?
No,
Come
no,
on,
from
Shane
the rabbis.
is trying to raise his hand and may have something he wants to say.
Who's
Shane.
that?
Go for it. David, go for it.
Not
that you're
Shane.
going over.
I just wanted to,
Karen is pointing at Shane.
I just wanted to say, for years, my daughter, who's in her mid-40s, was troubled by the story of Sarah and Hannah because she did not have a baby. But now, at 2 days after her 47th birthday, she had a beautiful baby whose name Yitzchak.
So we saw the pictures, right? Beautiful pictures.
So,
Mazal tov.
it brings Torah to us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's amazing stuff. I listen, Mark. So first of all, David and Shane Mazal Tov multiple times over.
Who's Mark?
Oh, Mark.
Oh, Mark.
But just to flesh this out real quick, I think the major thing to walk away with is there are major differences between the denominations, whether it comes to holiday observances or liturgy or the understanding of ritual. I think what's really important though is at the end of the day, I can only speak for the liberal streams, for conservative and reform, but I think that there's two things they're grappling with. They're grappling with with the story and how is Judaism practiced. And we're also struggling with we got the Jews in the pews, we got the kids on Rosh Hashanah, we got all this other stuff going on. How do we make this as relevant as possible? And we're grappling with it.
That's exactly
Right, and we may be slower to grapple with it than the reform movement. The reform movement may have been too fast to grapple with it, and now they're going back in some regards. Who knows? But that's the grappling, right? So I think that's a cool place to be, though, is to grapple with it.
Yeah, I think so. And also to do it in this town.
Well,
This town allows for this to happen because we have this relationship between all of us who are serving exactly what Jews need to be served with. And we're doing it kindly.
Amen.
Thank God, the relationship between the rabbis is so good. That does not happen in every city in America.
Nope.
So thank you both tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Stay
warm.
Stay warm. That's it.